Emma and Daniel Reed were the kind of couple that made others envious. Their social media pages were filled with sunset selfies, weekend getaways, and neatly filtered snapshots of home-cooked dinners. From the outside, their life in the suburbs of Jacksonville, Florida, looked calm and perfect. Daniel, in his early 30s, was a hard-working investment banker who spent most of his days in front of spreadsheets and conference calls. Emma, a few years younger, had left her job as a dental assistant to become a full-time homemaker, though she often called herself a lifestyle blogger online. She spent her days decorating the house, shopping, and curating the illusion of a perfect life. But perfection has a price. Daniel's job demanded long hours, late nights, and frequent business trips. He was exhausted, often quiet, and emotionally unavailable. Emma, meanwhile, felt isolated. The excitement in their marriage had disappeared, replaced by routine and resentment. They stopped having meaningful conversations. Emma tried to distract herself with material comforts, new clothes, trendy home decor, fancy kitchen gadgets. But it wasn't enough. She wanted more than just comfort. She wanted wealth. She wanted status. She wanted a life of luxury, the kind she saw on the feeds of influencers she followed religiously. Daniel's steady paycheck didn't cut it anymore. To her, he had become boring, a man obsessed with work, who could no longer fulfill her dreams. The turning point came during a charity gala hosted by a local hospital. Daniel was supposed to attend with her but canceled at the last minute due to a client emergency. Emma went alone, dressed in an expensive rented gown and borrowed jewelry. She wasn't used to walking into events solo, but she held her head high, ready to mingle. That's when she saw Richard Langston. He was older, maybe in his mid-50s, seated near the back of the hall in a sleek, custom wheelchair. His presence was quiet but commanding. A few whispered comments told Emma everything she needed to know. He was a millionaire, a real estate investor who had lost his mobility in a car accident 5 years ago. He donated heavily to local causes but kept to himself. Most people in the room avoided direct interaction with him, perhaps out of discomfort or pity. Emma, however, saw something else. She saw opportunity. She introduced herself with a smile, warm and practiced. Richard responded with polite interest. He wasn't flirtatious, but he seemed grateful for the attention. Their conversation was brief, but Emma made sure to leave an impression. She laughed at his jokes, complimented his foundation's work, and hinted at her interest in volunteering. By the end of the night, she had slipped him her contact details under the pretense of helping with future events. As she left the venue, a strange excitement pulsed through her veins. For the first time in months, she felt something close to purpose. She didn't know all the details yet, but one thing was clear. Richard Langston could give her the life Daniel never could. All she had to do was find a way in. Emma wasted no time after the gala. The very next week, she reached out to one of the nonprofits Richard supported, offering to volunteer. She crafted an email that sounded innocent and generous, presenting herself as someone eager to make a difference. Her charm worked. She was welcomed aboard, and within days, she was attending meetings and events where Richard was often present. Each time they crossed paths, Emma made sure to stand out, thoughtful compliments, casual touches on the arm, lingering eye contact. She knew how to be noticed without seeming desperate. Richard, despite his wealth, lived a quiet and lonely life. The accident that left him paralyzed from the waist down had also left emotional scars. Friends had drifted away, family members kept their distance, and the business partners who once praised him had taken control of daily operations. Emma became a breath of fresh air, she brought laughter, attention, and warmth back into his world. She helped him with errands, sat with him during long meetings, and began managing small parts of his calendar. Over time, Richard started to rely on her. Emma played the role perfectly. To others, she was just a caring volunteer, someone with a big heart. But behind the scenes, she was calculating. She observed Richard's routine, took note of his medications, and slowly familiarized herself with the security around his estate. She also started building trust, bringing him his favorite meals, learning his preferences, even buying clothes for him during her shopping trips. It was all part of a strategy. Emma wanted more than affection. She wanted access. At home, she maintained the illusion that everything was normal. Daniel remained unaware of the double life his wife was now leading. She told him the nonprofit work gave her a sense of fulfillment. He was glad to see her smiling again and didn't ask too many questions. That gave her the freedom to spend more time with Richard. She began staying out late, often returning home after Daniel had gone to bed. When he asked about her schedule, she claimed she was helping organize a major fundraiser. The lies came easily. What Emma hadn't expected was how quickly Richard would fall for her. Within a few months, he started introducing her as his close friend at events. Then came a new title, his personal assistant. With that, she gained more control. She helped pay his bills, reviewed contracts, and even started managing some of his bank transactions. Eventually, she convinced him to make her his power of attorney, arguing that it would help streamline daily responsibilities while he focused on his health. Richard agreed. He had grown to trust Emma completely. She was the only person who seemed to care about him without judgment. To him, she was a second chance at happiness. To Emma, he was a stepping stone to a richer life. As her influence over Richard grew, Emma began thinking about the bigger picture. Daniel had become an obstacle. She was tired of living a double life. If she truly wanted everything, both men would eventually have to be dealt with. Emma's mind was no longer clouded by guilt. By now, she saw her husband Daniel as a weight she needed to cast off. While she maintained the appearance of a dutiful wife at home, she was already crafting a plan to remove him from her life entirely, without losing anything she believed she was owed. She wanted to be free, but she also wanted his assets, his insurance, and his silence. Divorce was too slow, too messy. She needed a cleaner solution. The first step was manipulation. Emma began planting seeds of chaos inside their marriage. She picked arguments over nothing, accused Daniel of neglect, and even hinted to their mutual friends that he was controlling and emotionally distant. She created a version of him that didn't exist, setting the stage for a future narrative that would paint her as the victim. At the same time, she pushed for changes in their financial planning, suggesting they prepare just in case something ever happened. Daniel, eager to mend their strained relationship, agreed to take out a large life insurance policy in both their names. Emma insisted the policy be structured so that she would receive the full payout if anything happened to him. He didn't suspect a thing. With the paperwork finalized and the money secure, Emma took things a step further. She opened several bank accounts using aliases and began moving small amounts of money from their joint account into them. The transfers were timed carefully, always when Daniel was away on work trips or distracted by deadlines. By the time she was done, she had moved nearly $80,000 without his knowledge. She also forged his signature on several documents, giving herself greater financial independence under the guise of being helpful. When she filed for divorce, it came as a shock to Daniel. He hadn't seen it coming. He pleaded for marriage counseling, for a chance to fix things, but Emma remained cold and distant. Then she began delaying the legal process. She missed court dates, claimed illness, and accused Daniel of intimidation, making it seem like he was the one trying to avoid resolution. Her goal was to keep the case alive just long enough to prevent him from taking any major legal action, until she could carry out her final plan. All the while, her relationship with Richard deepened. He trusted her completely. She now had full access to his estate, his properties, and even his private medical records. Richard had no idea he was living under the control of someone who had already killed one life and was preparing to destroy another. Emma had become the central figure in both men's lives, loved by one, loathed by the other. But neither knew the true danger they were in. Emma's plan was now fully in motion. She wasn't just thinking about how to end her marriage. She was thinking about how to profit from its destruction and how to walk away from it all without a single scratch, wealthy, free, and untraceable. Daniel's death came on a rainy Thursday evening. Emma had spent weeks preparing for it, mapping every detail with cold precision. The plan was simple, effective, and designed to look like a tragic accident. She had tampered with the brakes of Daniel's car late one night while he was asleep. She wore gloves, moved carefully, and ensured there would be no fingerprints or evidence linking her to the crime. On the day of his death, she encouraged him to take a longer route home from work, claiming she needed something picked up from a store out of the way. That night his car veered off a wet road and plunged into a lake. When emergency services arrived, Daniel was already gone. The police ruled it an accident: slippery roads, poor visibility, and faulty brakes. No one suspected Emma. She played the grieving widow flawlessly, crying in front of reporters, accepting condolences with trembling hands, and publicly thanking the community for their support. But behind closed doors, she felt only relief. Within 2 weeks, she collected the full $750,000 life insurance payout. Her bank accounts, once strained and scattered, were now full. She wasted no time in purchasing a new car, upgrading her wardrobe, and visiting luxury boutiques under the guise of healing through self-care. With Daniel gone, Emma turned her full attention to Richard. She knew she couldn't afford to wait too long. People might begin asking questions if another man in her life died suddenly. So she moved fast, using what she had already learned to control every part of his environment. She adjusted his medication routine, offering to prepare his tea in the evenings, adding crushed sleeping pills in increasing doses. Richard began experiencing drowsiness, confusion, and difficulty staying awake during the day. Emma convinced him it was stress, or perhaps the result of aging. When Richard grew concerned, she suggested hiring a live-in nurse to monitor his health, presenting herself as someone who only cared for his well-being. The nurse, a quiet woman named Sandra, quickly became suspicious. She noticed inconsistencies in Richard's medical charts and found pills missing from their bottles. One night, after Emma had left the room, Sandra tested a sample of Richard's tea and confirmed her fears. He was being drugged. But before she could report anything, Emma dismissed her, claiming Richard needed someone more professional. Sandra left, but not without keeping a copy of her notes and quietly submitting an anonymous tip to the authorities. Days later, Richard died in his sleep. Emma wasted no time preparing the inheritance paperwork, already having forged documents that made her the primary beneficiary of Richard's estate. But things didn't go as smoothly as before. The coroner flagged inconsistencies in Richard's toxicology report. The sedatives found in his blood weren't part of any prescription on record. Combined with Sandra's tip, the case was quietly reopened. Authorities began watching Emma closely, reviewing her financial records and cross-referencing dates. It was only a matter of time before the web of lies she had spun so carefully began to unravel, strand by strand. The investigation into Richard's death started quietly, but it didn't stay that way for long. A team of forensic accountants began reviewing his financial activity in the weeks leading up to his death. What they found raised serious red flags: large transfers to Emma's personal accounts, suspicious changes in his will, and the sudden appointment of Emma as his power of attorney just months earlier. These discoveries, combined with the coroner's toxicology report and the nurse's anonymous warning, prompted police to launch a full-scale inquiry. Emma didn't know it yet, but her carefully constructed facade was beginning to crack. Detectives began piecing together her digital footprint. Her emails, texts, and online purchases painted a picture of calculated manipulation. They discovered late-night searches about sedative dosages, vehicle sabotage, and even how long it takes for brake fluid to leak undetected. Surveillance footage from a pharmacy showed her purchasing sleeping pills under a fake name, while CCTV from a garage supply store captured her buying tools around the same time Daniel's brakes failed. Slowly, the pieces began to form a clear and disturbing puzzle. Emma, unaware of the investigation, had already started the process of selling Richard's estate. She told friends she planned to move to Europe for a fresh start. She even booked a one-way flight to Paris, scheduled to depart within the week. But before she could leave, detectives showed up at her doorstep with a warrant. Her house was searched top to bottom. Laptops, phones, journals, and bank statements were seized. Emma tried to stay calm, maintaining her innocence, claiming everything was just a misunderstanding. But the walls were closing in fast. For days, she was questioned. At first, she denied everything. She cried, pleaded, and accused investigators of targeting her without proof. But as the evidence mounted, her stories started to fall apart. Cossetine. Pressure. Her tone changed. She admitted to being close to Richard and struggling in her marriage with Daniel, but continued to deny any involvement in their deaths. However, one mistake sealed her fate: a handwritten note found in her bedroom drawer. It was an early draft of her plan, detailing steps to access Richard's assets and outlining how to stage Daniel's accident. The note, though never intended to be seen, became the final nail in her coffin. Emma Reed was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, fraud, forgery, and obstruction of justice. Her trial captured national attention, with headlines calling her the Black Widow of Jacksonville. In court, prosecutors laid out the chilling sequence of events. The jury listened in stunned silence as they heard how Emma used charm, deceit, and calculated cruelty to eliminate the 2 men who trusted her most. After weeks of testimony, she was found guilty on all counts. Sentenced to life in prison without parole, Emma's days of designer dresses and luxury galas were replaced by cold cement walls and orange uniforms. Her greed, once hidden behind a perfect smile, had finally consumed her. In the end, she got the life she deserved, not one of wealth and freedom, but one of endless regret and locked doors.